Hello, English learners, and welcome to English Podcast. I'm your host, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. Joining me today is our awesome expert. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Really excited to talk about some fun ways to improve your English skills.
Me too. Sometimes learning English can feel a little bit like a chore.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that it could be as simple as watching your favorite movie or listening to music? We've got some cool tips to help you improve your English in your free time while you relax. It's going to be fun.
Definitely. It's all about finding ways to learn while you're living your life. You'll be surprised how much you learn without even realizing it.
Okay, I love that idea. Let's start with movies and TV shows. I mean, who doesn't love a good movie night? But how can we turn that into an English learning experience?
Well, just think about it. When you're watching something, you're totally immersed in the language, right? You're hearing how words are pronounced naturally. You're picking up common phrases. And you even start to get a feel for the rhythm of English.
That's true. But I can imagine it might feel a little overwhelming, especially if you're a beginner. What would you suggest for someone who is just starting to learn English?
I always suggest starting with something you already know. Love comedies. Put on a funny movie you've seen before in your own language. Since you already know the story, you can just relax and focus on the English. You won't feel lost.
That makes sense.
Just
Takes the
nice.
pressure off. Our source material also mentions subtitles. Are those helpful, or do they become a crutch?
Subtitles can be a really great tool, especially when you're starting out. You can think of them like training wheels for your English. Start with subtitles in your native language so you can follow along easily. Then, as you get more comfortable, challenge yourself and switch to English subtitles. You might be surprised how much you can understand.
I like that tip. It's like leveling up in a game. Speaking of levels, let's talk about another way to improve your English. Music. I know I've learned a ton of new words just from listening to songs.
Music is such a great learning tool. It's fun, it gets stuck in your head, and it makes you want to sing along. And that repetition is so important for pronunciation and learning new words.
Yeah, I've totally had those earworm moments where I can't get a song out of my head. And you're right, you just start singing along without even thinking about it. But what about when you hear a word in a song and you have no idea what it means?
Don't be afraid to look up the words you don't know. It's like a scavenger hunt for new vocabulary. Plus, music often uses more informal language and slang. That can be really helpful if you want to sound more natural when you're speaking.
That's a really good point. When I was first learning English, I was so focused on what I learned from textbooks, I sounded really stiff and formal. Music helped me relax a little.
Okay, so we've talked about movies and music. Let's move on to something a little quieter. Reading. I love to read, but I can imagine it can be tough for English learners. Reading is fantastic for a lot of reasons. It helps you learn new words, improves your grammar, and it exposes you to different ways of writing, which can make you a better writer yourself. But you're right, it's important to choose something that's right for your level.
So probably not Shakespeare right away.
Maybe not for beginners. Start with something you enjoy and that you can understand. Children's books are great because they use simple language and they usually have pictures. You could also look for graded readers. Those are books specifically made for people learning English, or even blogs and articles about stuff you're interested in. The important thing is to find something that keeps you engaged.
That makes sense. What about keeping a journal? Our source material mentioned that as a good way to practice writing, but honestly, I'm a little intimidated by the idea of writing in English.
Journaling is a great way to practice expressing yourself in English. And there's no pressure. It's like having a conversation with yourself on paper. Write about your day, your dreams, your worries, anything.
So I shouldn't worry too much about making mistakes.
Exactly. Don't worry about grammar or writing perfect sentences. The goal is just to write your thoughts and get comfortable with how the language flows.
I like that. It takes all the scariness out of writing. Okay, so for anyone listening who loves word games, let's talk about those. I've always loved crosswords and Scrabble.
Word games are a fantastic way to improve your English. They help you with spelling, learning new words, and even understanding the connections between words. Plus, they're fun.
It's like tricking yourself into learning. Speaking of fun, our source materials suggested labeling things around your house in English. Does that really work?
Yeah, it might sound a little silly, but it's actually really effective. Think about it. You're constantly seeing those labels, so you're passively learning the words without even trying. It's like creating a little mini English world in your home.
It's like turning your house into a giant set of flashcards.
Exactly. Plus, it's a fun activity you can do with your family or roommates. Grab some sticky notes and start labeling.
I'm definitely going to try that. We've talked about practicing reading, listening, and writing in English. But what about speaking? That's often the hardest part for English learners.
You're absolutely right. Speaking can be scary, but the most important thing is to just start practicing. Even if you're just talking to yourself, find opportunities to speak English out loud as much as you can.
So read out loud from a book, have imaginary conversations, talk to your pet in English.
All of that. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll get.
These are some really great tips. I think what I'm hearing is that it's all about finding ways to bring English into your everyday life and have fun doing it.
Exactly. The more you enjoy it, the more likely you are to keep doing it.
And the more progress you'll make. And we're back with more great tips to help you learn English naturally. So we've talked about using movies, music, and reading to improve your English, even labeling things in your house.
And now we're going to talk about 2 more resources that can really help you improve your speaking and listening: conversation groups and language learning apps.
I've always wondered about conversation groups. I have to admit, I used to get a little nervous thinking about joining one. Like, what if people judge me if I make a mistake? Or what if I can't keep up because everyone else is already fluent?
It's totally normal to feel that way, but you have to remember everyone in those groups is there for the same reason. To practice and get better at English, you'll find people of all different levels there, from beginners to people who are more advanced. And the great thing is that conversation groups are usually really supportive and encouraging. Mistakes are seen as a chance to learn.
So it's more about communication and connection, not about being perfect.
Exactly. It's a safe place to try out new words and to build your confidence. Plus, you'll meet people from all over the world, learn about different cultures, and you might even make some new friends.
That sounds awesome. It's like a social club for English learners. Where can people find these conversation groups? Are they all in person?
Nope, not at all. There are tons of online groups too, which can be really great if you're not comfortable meeting in person or if you don't live near many English speakers. You can find groups on Facebook or Meetup or language exchange websites. There are even apps specifically for finding conversation groups.
Wow, so many choices. Speaking of apps, let's talk about language learning apps. There are so many out there, it can be hard to choose. What should people look for when they're choosing an app?
Look for an app that has a variety of exercises and activities to keep things interesting. A good app should help you with all 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. You want an app that feels more like a game than a textbook.
So not just memorizing lists of words.
Right. Look for apps with games, quizzes, real-life situations, and even ways to practice speaking with AI or other learners. Some apps even give you personalized feedback so you can focus on what you need to improve.
Personalized feedback, that's amazing, like having a personal English teacher. Okay, let's be real though. A lot of people are really busy. How can they find time for language learning?
That's where apps are great. They're super flexible. You can use them even if you have a busy schedule. Our source material suggests setting aside just 10 or 15 minutes a day to practice with an app. Even a short amount of time can make a difference if you do it regularly.
I love that idea. It's not about how long you study. It's about being consistent. You don't need to spend hours every day. Just find a few minutes here and there to practice English.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to try different things and see what works for you. Maybe one day you're in the mood to watch a show with subtitles, and the next day you want to play a quick vocabulary game on an app. The most important thing is to find things you enjoy and to make learning a part of your life.
Okay, so we've talked about movies, music reading games, conversation groups, and apps. Are there any other resources people might be missing?
There's one more fantastic resource that people often forget about, even though it's free, easy to access, and full of educational content for English learners.
Okay, now I'm curious. What is it?
YouTube. There are so many channels dedicated to teaching English, covering everything from grammar and pronunciation to slang and idioms.
Oh, yeah. YouTube is a goldmine for language learners.
Yeah.
But how do you even know where to start with so much content?
Start by searching for channels that focus on what you need help with and what interests you. Struggling with grammar, trying to improve your pronunciation, want to learn expressions that native speakers use. Whatever your goals are, there's a YouTube channel that can help.
It's like having a personal English tutor, but it's YouTube instead of an app.
Exactly. And you can learn at your own pace with YouTube. You can pause, rewind, and watch again as many times as you need to. And don't forget about subtitles. You can use them to follow along and learn new words.
It's awesome that this amazing learning tool is free and available to anyone. It's like having an endless library of English lessons right there on your phone or computer.
It really is. And the best part is it's always growing and changing, so there's always something new to learn.
I love that. It's like a never-ending English learning adventure. So we've covered a lot today, from more passive learning to interactive resources. Do you have any last bits of advice for our listeners before we wrap up?
The most important thing is to be patient with yourself. Learning a language takes time and effort. It's a journey. It's not a race. There will be times when you feel frustrated or like you're not making progress, but don't give up. Celebrate all your progress, no matter how small it seems. Every bit of practice helps.
That's such good advice. It's so easy to feel like you're not learning fast enough or to want to be perfect. But it's important to just enjoy the process and to celebrate all the little wins along the way.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone. There are so many other people learning English. And they're going through the same things you are. Connect with them, share your experiences, and support each other.
I love that. We're all in this together. Okay, everyone, we're going to wrap up here. But before we go, I want to leave you with a little challenge.
I love challenges. What is it?
Think about one thing you learned today that you really liked. Maybe a tip, a resource, or just a new way of thinking about language learning.
Okay, I've got one. What now?
Now, commit to trying it this week. Make it a small goal that you can actually do. Maybe watching one episode of your favorite show with English subtitles, or listening to a new English song, or labeling a few things in your house.
I love it. It's about taking what we've learned and putting it into practice.
Exactly. I bet you'll be surprised how much you can learn even with just a little bit of effort.
All right, English learners, that's all for today. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of English learning.
Okay, we're back for the last part of our English learning journey today.
Yeah, and I'm excited to wrap things up with some final thoughts to keep you motivated and learning English.
We've talked about so many fun and interesting ways to practice English, ways to make English part of your everyday life, not just something you do in a classroom or with a textbook.
Exactly. We talked about everything. Watching movies, listening to music, playing word games, even labeling things around your house in English. And we talked about great resources like conversation groups and those amazing language learning apps that are like having a personal tutor in your pocket.
It's been a lot of tips and ideas, but I think it all comes down to one main message that we've talked about a lot today.
And what's that?
Learning English should be enjoyable. It shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something you're excited about, something that makes you curious and makes you want to keep learning more and more.
Absolutely. Learning a language is like going on a trip. And just like any trip, it'll have good parts and bad parts. There will be times when you're frustrated or when you feel like you're not getting anywhere. But there will also be times when you feel successful, when you learn something new, and times when you're just happy because you realize how much you've learned.
That's so true. Those are the moments that keep us going. Like when you understand a new word for the first time, or when you have a conversation with someone in English, or when you can finally watch a movie without subtitles. Those are the moments that make all the hard work worth it.
You got it. So don't worry about making mistakes. It's part of the process. Every mistake is a chance to learn and improve. The more you practice, the more confident you'll get, and the more fun you'll have.
I like that way of thinking. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress and celebrating those little wins. Now, before we go, I want to give you one last challenge, something to help you actually use what we've talked about today.
I'm always up for a challenge. Tell me more.
Think about all the tips and resources we've discussed. Which one stood out to you the most? Which one made you think, hey, I could actually try that?
Okay, I have one in mind. What should I do with it?
I want you to actually try it this week. Make it a small goal that you can actually accomplish. Maybe watch one episode of your favorite show in English with subtitles, or listen to a new English song, or label a few things around your house.
That's a great challenge. It's all about taking action and using what we've learned.
Exactly. And I bet you'll be surprised how much progress you can make, even with just a little effort every day. Remember, consistency is key. Just a few minutes of practice each day can make a huge difference.
So true. And remember, we're all on this journey together. We're a community of English learners, and we can do this.
That's right. So keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. You can do it. We can't wait to see you succeed. Well, that's all for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed learning about all the fun ways to learn English in your free time.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And don't forget to subscribe to English Podcasts so you don't miss any new episodes. We'll be back soon with more tips and tricks to help you improve your English. Happy learning.